Mahmoud, the great diversity of religions in this world can be used in two different ways. One, it can show the pervasive importance of religion for human beings. On the other hand, it can show such great conflict among different beliefs that it would invalidate them all. As a Muslim, as an Islamic scholar, how do you look upon the whole issue of comparative religions?
The first thing that one would have to say about religions is that they are different. Religions cannot be all reduced into one system or system of worship or belief system or whatever. They are many. The second thing is that human beings have been religious as long as there have been human beings. So human religiousness is as old as humanity. This is because human religions ask very basic questions. First, how do we come to be here? How did the universe begin? And all these questions relate to the issue of creation. The second question is why we are here. What is the purpose of human life, of existence altogether? And that usually is dealt with through revelation. And the final question, in my view, is where do we go from here? And that is the issue of salvation. And it is on these three questions that religions really differ. The issue of creation has to do with history. Genesis begins, and this is the Quran also, with the assertion, in the beginning, God created. That is to say, there was nothing, and God, through his fiat, that is the command, be, he caused all things to come into being. Now, there are complications and different variations on the theme, but basically, creation then has a beginning. And then the history of creation runs its course and must come to a consummation, that is the end of human history, when rather things will go back to their original state before creation. The Quran dramatically says, on that day, the earth shall shine forth with the light of its Lord, and all human beings will stand up together before the one, the all-conquering God. Then, as it were, God will ask himself, since there is nobody else to ask, who, to whom does dominion belong today? And he will answer himself, to God, the one, the all-conquering. This is the talk that we have in both the Bible and the Quran about the trumpets, the trumpet blasts. Mm-hmm. The first blast of the trumpet will cause all things, including death, to die. The second, all things will rise up for the final judgment. Now, this history compares very differently with the wisdom traditions, or notably Hinduism and Buddhism. History has neither beginning nor end. It moves in cycles of time that boggles the mind of kalpas and mahakalpas and so on, as in Hinduism. And eventually, all this would lead to the end of a cycle, for the cycle to repeat itself. These are known as the day and night of Brahman. Now, in this cycle, the issue of then creation becomes no issue, really, because there is creation and recreation eternally. Now, how do we know all this? We know it through revelation. Revelation for the wisdom tradition is not from God, but of eternal truths, like the truths of the Vedas, which were reverberating in the universe. And all that the sages did is that they had the great sensitivity, if you wish, to pick these truths up and communicate them to people. This is different from the prophetic model, where God would choose a prophet, Moses on Sinai, Muhammad on Mount Hira, and so on, and reveal to him his will. And his role, that is the prophet's role, is to communicate this divine will to his people. Islam says on this score that there is no nation, but that God had sent to it a messenger to explain to them God's will. And so the question that Muslims have not really answered satisfactorily is, how do we deal with the religious traditions and the great sages, philosophers and prophets and so on, that came before Islam? I say before because Islam teaches that that human history is prophetic history, and the first prophet and the first sinner was Adam. This prophetic history then ends with Muhammad, who, according to Islam, is the last prophet, and the Quran is the last revelation. There is disagreement among Muslims as to whether the Quranic revelation and then the Islamic message abrogates and supersedes all other previous religious traditions and prophetic dispensations. But in the end, I think that the Quranic view, at least as I understand it, is that no, there is a plurality of religions in the world, but in essence, all religions really are meant to teach divine oneness. Religion, therefore, according to Islam, is basically all of its manifestations a in some ways a manifestation of Islam as being the surrender of the human will to the divine will. In fact, according to Islam, we live in a Muslim universe. Not only human beings, but all creation is a creation that is a Muslim, that is to say, submitting to the will of God.